Pero sin lugar a dudas, cuando hablamos de The Drums, hablamos de uno de los actos insignia del movimiento indie de los 2000, 2010 hasta ahora. Y nos da muchísimo gusto saludarte, Jonny. Hi, welcome.
Hola, hola. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here today. How are you?
I'm doing good. This is just such a pleasure to be at Sopitas. I've never been here before, so I like that. And I love being in Mexico, so I'm very happy. Anytime anyone asks me, where do you want to go on vacation? Where do you want to travel to? I always say, there's no other option. We're going to Mexico. I just have the best time here, and I feel so loved when I'm here. I think my fans here are among some of the most loyal, passionate, and I think they also understand me. They see, in a way that maybe some other places do not. So I always feel very loved in a real way when I'm here. So how could I not be happy?
Estamos platicando con Jonathan Pierce de The Drums, justo sobre su visita a nuestro país. El miércoles toca en el pabellón oeste del Palacio de los Deportes, está presentando un nuevo álbum y justo bueno, siempre nos da muchísimo gusto, me da muchísimo gusto estar en México. Hay una gran energía, los fans que tengo acá siempre me tratan muy bien, son de lo más entusiastas, amantes, leales, dicen, me entienden realmente. Y justo cuando me dicen ¿a dónde quieres ir de vacaciones, de paseo, de gira? Yo siempre digo México. That's great.
And Jonny, well, lo escucharon, empezamos esta sección con Money, and you were talking before we started that Money has a long story of you writing it on your stove.
Yes, actually, money comes from my second album, Portamento, and at the time, I had some success with my first album, my debut album, but I wanted to stay in the recording space that I was in when I recorded my first album, which was I would be in my bedroom and I would just open my computer and grab my guitar and I would just kind of make something happen, my crappy microphone, and I would just record that way. That's how the first album was done. And I was asked a lot, what producer do you want to work with for your second album? What studio do you want to go to? And we could have done anything we wanted, but something inside of me said, just stay in that smaller space, and you're not ready to move forward into something unknown. So it felt very cozy, and I recorded it in my kitchen in New York City, which was at the time a very tiny kitchen, and so I didn't even have a table to eat. So I set the speakers and the recording gear on my stove and made sure I didn't have any of the burners on. But we did cook up something very nice.
Totally. Bueno, justo le preguntabas, Mónica, acabamos de escuchar y Jonathan nos cuenta, dice, bueno, pues viene en mi segundo álbum, ¿no? Pero en realidad el primer disco que hice lo hice en mi casa, en mi cuarto, con mi micrófono casero y demás. Y después del éxito que obtuvo, pues me decían, bueno, ¿con quién quieres trabajar en el segundo álbum? ¿Con qué productor quieres? En donde decía, no, quiero que hacerlo otra vez, mantenerlo tranquilo en mi casa. Dice, bueno, yo este segundo disco lo grabé en mi cocina, en Nueva York. Dice, una cocina muy pequeña, no tenía siquiera una mesa. Entonces pues, tenía las bocinas y la consola, la acomodé ahí en la estufa, casi, ¿no? Y afortunadamente salió. And now you releasing this new album, Jonny, that I understand you went back to your childhood home with your parents.
Yeah, well, so I didn't record it there, but the album artwork was taken in my childhood home. So, the real story is that I grew up in a space that was, my childhood home was more of a house and not a home,
Okay.
There wasn't a lot of love and safety there. And so when I was old enough, I ran away to New York City. And there I started, I was signed to a record label and my life kind of took off. But there was a lot of pain when I thought about my past. And so for the album artwork, I decided to drive upstate about 10 years ago. And I took photos of myself. I snuck into my childhood bedroom window when my parents were out of the house. And I took a bunch of photos in all of the rooms. And that became the album cover and the single covers. But I did return to recording at home for this new album. So I have this small little cabin in the countryside of upstate New York. It's right next to a beautiful lake. And during the pandemic in 2020, I went up there and I stayed there for a year on my own. And I decided to start recording when I wanted to and not really putting a lot of pressure on it. I didn't have the idea of making an album in my mind. So I would write a song every once in a while when my whole body, my mind, my spirit, my soul said it's time to write. And that's the only time that I would write. It's very different from how I would make albums in the past, it's album time and I would just crank out song after song after song without resting or, being gentle with myself. And so this new album was made from kind of a gentle space, but I did the whole thing on my own in this small little cabin and offered it to the record label and they loved it and now it's out in the world. So yeah, in a way it's a return.
I want to ask about the title as well. I mean, Jonny, it's a kind of reconnect as well with yourself.
Yes, yeah. This album is really a love letter to not just myself, but the younger versions of myself that didn't get a lot of love. So a lot of this album, I call it my time travel album, where I'm sort of going back to younger versions of myself, maybe the baby Jonny or the child Jonny or the teenager Jonny or the rock and roll star Jonny, and I'm going to each version of me and saying, you're safe to express yourself and you should say what you want to say. And if you're feeling bad, you should tell me. And in a way, like each track was a way for each different version of me to be able to finally feel safe enough to express themselves. So it was very healing, quite a beautiful way to make a record.
It's like when you revisit your life, let the good and the bad stuff, and you understand that everything makes you who you are now. And you said something very beautiful, that you needed to be gentle with yourself during this album. And I think it's beautiful, like when you remember your life and you understand all those things.
Yeah, gentleness was a key element in making this album. I started therapy 6 years ago and it's changed my life. And in the very first session, my therapist said to me, Jonny, I want you to try something, and it might be hard to do, but I want you to try this week to be gentle with yourself. Try to be soft with yourself. And I thought, I'm gentle with myself. What are you talking about? I'm nice to myself. And looking back now, I can see just how hard I was on myself and how much I didn't like myself. And so it's been a process of kind of like discovering parts of myself that I was ignoring or pushing away or hated even, and becoming more used to them, maybe being friendly with them, and then learning to love them.
Yeah.
And but all those parts, this is why I call the album Jonny. There's 16 tracks, and some of them thematically go together. Some of them, there's 2 songs about love. They go together easily. But there's other songs that conflict. There's songs about abuse. There's songs about healing. There's songs about being hopeless. There's songs about being hopeful. And isn't that the experience of being a human?
Sure.
Like we have all of these things that some of them don't make sense because they seem opposite, but they all create the self. And so that's why I called it Jonny. It's like this album is like looking in a mirror at myself, like and seeing all of me, not just the parts that I felt safe seeing.
Yeah.
Let's translate. Because this was
I'm a big
one.
talker. I'm a big talker.
I mean, that's
I should have
beautiful.
warned you. I should have warned you.
Sí, justo, primero estamos hablando con Jonathan Pierce, que está presentando su disco Jonny de The Drums, y una de las primeras preguntas que le hiciste, Subs, fue que fue a su casa de la infancia o a su hogar de la infancia a tomar algunas fotos que ahora son el artwork del disco, y nos contaba pues justo que su casa de la infancia era exactamente eso, una casa, no un hogar, y cuando fue adolescente huyó a Nueva York, pero regresó a tomar esas fotos, ahí se coló a la ventana, como de Clarissa lo explica todo, casi a tomarle estas fotos que ahora ilustran todo el disco, y que esa fue la experiencia de grabar el disco, que fue una experiencia de volver a sí mismo, a su juventud, a su adolescencia, a su joven adulto, para poder crear todas estas canciones que grabó pues en una cabañita que tiene por ahí en Nueva York, cerca de un lago, que es una experiencia bastante sanadora y cercana. Y luego, Greta, hablaste de la gentileza.
Sí, también nos estaba platicando que toda esta experiencia la hizo cuidándose a sí mismo, que fue una manera muy distinta de hacerlo, considerando los otros discos como este Rush y este Acelere. Ahora lo hizo de una manera muy gentil consigo mismo, y justo le preguntábamos del significado de este disco y de las canciones, que es como cuando revisitas tu vida y miras al pasado, lo bueno y lo malo, y entiendes que todo eso construye la persona que eres hoy. Entonces no se trata de solo encontrar nos decía que no se trata de solo encontrar esas partes, que fue a terapia hace 6 años y desde la primera sesión empezó a ver algunos cambios, y que justo fue esta parte de su tarea era ser gentil consigo mismo todos los días, y piensas así pero si soy bueno conmigo mismo, y te das cuenta que realmente no, que eres muy duro contigo, y por eso hay canciones en este disco sobre amor, hay canciones sobre sanar, y explora varios temas que son muy personales para Jonny Pierce.
Not when you're saying it, it sounds, beautiful, and it's a very moving story. But I can't not think about how tough was for you all this process. I understand that in the way you adopt a puppy, that was and
Yes.
you raise it, and how was for you? Bringing a puppy with you, raising him, and take care of another living self.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question. Honestly, I got this puppy, like a lot of people got puppies during the pandemic.
Yeah.
We were all a little lonely. We all needed some warmth and some love. And I was not immune to that. So I was also one of those people. And having this puppy and showing up for this puppy every day was a revolutionary experience for me. And it seems simple, but it's just exactly what I needed to be able to hold and cuddle this sweet thing that's really fully dependent on me. If I don't feed this dog won't live.
Yeah.
If I don't nurture this dog, it's up to me. And so I was able to give love to this creature, and then see this creature learn to trust me, and suddenly there's this messaging, I'm trustworthy.
Wow.
And I can take care of if I can take care of this puppy, maybe I can take care of me too. And there was just all of these beautiful lessons of love and trust and loyalty and integrity. It was just a beautiful experience. And something about raising, her name is May. She's 3 years old now. Something about raising her, I went from never wanting children, now I must have a child. It must happen. So, yeah.
No, but it's very interesting because I think it's related. That's something that you mentioned a couple of minutes ago. And taking care of others, not only humans, but living things, it's about the human experience. That
Absolutely.
connection, it's part of the human experience. And I think it's beautiful, the process.
Yes, it was really important for me to have that year really like away from... I've always referred to my life as like a life of survival. Since I was a little boy, since I was a baby, really, that's when it started. I was learning to survive on my own. And when all you know is survival, you kind of are on this treadmill all the time. And your brain is constantly thinking about what's safe and what's not safe. And it's hard to shut that off. And you have to work very hard to be okay. And even when I got to a place when I had success with the band, and even when I built beautiful, loving relationships with people that I now call my family, I still had that part of me that was go, go, go. It was we call it muscle memory, right? The emotional muscle memory. And COVID was like, nope, you're going to slow down. And so I did, and I tried to really honor that moment. It was very scary at first, but that stillness ultimately is what helped reveal the parts of me that I didn't know or had never seen or was afraid of. During COVID, I got in touch with my anger. My whole life I've said I'm not an angry person. I've never been in a fight. No, I was just
Angry Jonny.
a professional at pushing it so far down that I truly believed I wasn't ever angry. And that stillness brought up some anger too, right? But what was so beautiful about it, and this is the interconnectedness of feelings and what it is to be human. Once I went into my anger and started exploring it, as scary as it was, after I would come out of that space, I never felt joy as big as I felt after I've experienced some anger. So it was like the key to my big joy was found in my anger. You know, it's like that is to be human.
Yeah, and that anger sometimes it's related with cruelty when you are cruel with yourself, you know?
Absolutely.
You are pushing that anger and you are cruel with yourself because you are doing that.
Yes, and I think there was a part of it where I think I was so angry that I think my subconscious wouldn't let me go near it because once I got even a taste of it, watch out. I need to go in the woods and scream for a little while. But I did do things like that, and I found myself feeling much more peace in my day-to-day experience. And certainly in making this album, there's a song where I actually say I'm angry. I've never talked about anger in my music. And then there's songs that are very joyful because I've gone through some of the anger, so...
Let us translate a bit. Vamos a traducir un poco. Esta fue acá una respuesta de estas de que te llega hasta la garganta.
Sí.
Porque empezó preguntando sobre Jonny, que adoptó una perrita en la pandemia que se llama May, que tiene 3 años. Y los aprendizajes que te da cuidar un ser vivo y que un ser vivo dependa de ti y decir como, si yo no le doy de comer a este perrito, o sea, depende de mí, y el aprender que eres trustworthy, que tú vales la pena y que pueden confiar en ti. Y ese fue uno de los grandes aprendizajes de la pandemia. Y con el tiempo, pues fue encontrando otras emociones, además de esta paz o de este valor de cuidar a un ser vivo. Y por ahí encontró su relación con el enojo, ¿no? Este enojo que decía, yo no soy una persona enojada, yo jamás me peleo, nunca le he pegado a nadie. Pero pues en realidad era una embotelladora perfecta de ira, que fue encontrándolo, y al encontrar tu enojo, pues también encuentras las mejores alegrías a veces y una paz interior que no conocía mientras hacía este disco tan personal. Por ahí hay una canción que habla de estoy enojado, ¿no?
Sí,
I'm angry.
sí. Totalmente. Bueno, el miércoles se presenta The Drums en el pabellón oeste de del Palacio de los Deportes. Todavía alcanzan boletos para verlo. Last question. I want to ask about Dying and this collaboration with Rico Nasty. I mean, being this such an intimate album and personal album, when did you decide that, okay, maybe I will open up and bring Rico to do this song together?
Yeah. The way you ask questions, I feel like you understand me.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. All three of you, actually. And I thank you for that. It's nice to have that feeling. I'm not a big collaborator. It's something I'm trying to work on a little bit. I'm someone who retreats to solitude a lot. And certainly when I make my music, I feel sometimes like when I bring people in to do something with me, my work gets easily kind of diluted and watered down a little bit. So I try to just put out potent work that's very strong. And I think I'm the best at doing that for myself. And I like when other people collaborate. I think collaboration is a beautiful concept. I have a hard time doing it. So I'm working on that. But maybe I don't have to work on it. I don't know. We're figuring that part out. As far as Rico, so 4 or 5 years ago, Rico had done an interview with Nardwuar, and somebody had sent me this video, said, look, Rico's talking about you. And he had asked, what was the music of your high school years? And she, her whole image is kind of tough.
Yeah.
And her whole body just got really soft and sweet. Her whole body changed. She goes, oh, the drums. And she lists the Smiths and the drums. That's what she said. And I just saw, this is someone who really gets me and loves me. And so years later, as I was making Jonny, just at the very end of the process of making that album, she reached out and asked if I wanted to work with her. And I had just finished the Dying track. I was going to just do it on my own. And so I just took my vocals off of it and off the 2 verses. And I sent it to her immediately. She wrote back in 2 minutes, I love this, let's do it. And before I knew it, we were in the studio together in Los Angeles. When we got in the studio, it was like, oh, okay, yeah, we're connected. Yeah. We're connected. We get it, you know? And I think we both cried in the session. And after she left, I looked at my manager and said, that was the best session I've ever had. And as I'm saying that, she texts me and says, that was the best session I've ever had. And it was just this beautiful, I think we talked for 3 hours before we recorded a single note, you know.
That's
it
great.
was just, we finally get to be with each other. And so now we've just performed with her in Los Angeles, and I'll be seeing, I think, a lot more of her. So it was just a beautiful thing and kind of an exception. I usually wouldn't collaborate. There's got to be a lot of love there for me to want to do that.
Bueno, pues le estaba preguntando justo de esta maravillosa canción que se llama Dying, en la cual colabora con Rico Nasty. Le pregunta justo, siendo un disco tan personal, tan íntimo, ¿cómo es que decides abrirlo y traer a alguien más? Y dice, bueno, pues en realidad es que no soy un gran colaborador, no suelo trabajar tanto en equipo. Soy un tanto tímido, me cuesta trabajo de repente relacionarme en cierto sentido con otras personas, pero bueno, con ella un poco, hace algunos años alguien me compartió una entrevista donde cuando le preguntaban cuál era la música que escuchaba de adolescente, dice, bueno, pues ella tiene una imagen muy, muy dura, muy impresionante, y de repente dice, bueno, no, pues The Smiths y The Drums, ¿no? Toda tímida, y entonces dije, bueno, hay algo ahí, y de repente ella le escribió a Jonathan, le dijo, ¿por qué no colaboramos? Le mandó la canción, dijo, me encanta, la hicimos, se pusieron, dice, bueno, fue algo maravilloso poder trabajar con ella, y sobre todo, bueno, en la parte de cómo nos sentimos, ¿no? De incluso estuvimos platicando 3 horas antes de grabar siquiera la primera nota. Johnny, thank you very much for being here.
Thank
It's
you.
been a pleasure. See you on Wednesday on Pabellón Este.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, and I feel so connected to you 3
Yeah,
by the end of this.
This is your home.
I'd love to
We're
come
looking
back.
forward to having you back, of course.
Please, yes, I'd love that. Thank you.
Thanks to you.
Gracias, Subs, Max. Nos escuchamos mañana.
Pues ya agarramos nuestra chiva, nos escuchamos mañanita.
Que tengan buen lunes. Adiós.
Nuestra atención vive en muchos sitios de manera simultánea. Ya puedes desconectarte de este. Sopitas FM, lunes a viernes, 9 a 11 de la mañana.